ancestry.
But you know, hey, you're 16 years old and you're with other 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and you're all Haututus, you know, and you're out in the world, away from milking cows, away from your parents. So, you know, it's not like you want to be a carver.
Yeah.
Carving is a means for your to feed you and house you, but it wasn't like it was your dream. It was like, I better not fail. You know, I think the old man said, "Yeah, you better finish this. Don't come home till you finish it." And that was the same for all of us. Like there was a weight of responsibility from the iwi.
And
that
you were aware of that
yeah,
expectation?
oh yeah, all of us. We were all told, you're here for your iwi, not for you.
In 1967, he was one of 7 people who were part of the first intake into the New Zealand Arts and Crafts Institute carving school. He'd never carved anything in his life, but was led there with the support and active guidance of some tupuna. Our guest today is Tuhunga Whakairo Master Carver James Tataonuiakupe Rickard, a man who gave 55 years service to New Zealand Māori Arts and Crafts Institute and is still carving today. That's our guest for this episode, James Rickard, on Indigenous 100. E kare James, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Welcome to Indigenous 100. It's great to have you with us. Ngā mihi nui kia koe. Thank you for joining us. Or should I call you Te Taonuiakupe?
Aulina hauauru.
Being from Hokianga, I can get away with it. How did you, where's that name from, Te Taonuiakupe?
Cape Jackson
Ah.
and the South Island, where
Ah.
my great-grandfather's buried.
Oh, so that is your name, Te Taonuiakupe?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's my Māori name. But my old man used to work in the post office and he used to register us under his the Pākehā names. So I'm named after my old man,
Ah.
James Edwin Lancelot.
James Edwin Lancelot. Oh, wow.
When my grandmother found out, she took me down to the creek, Taonuiakupe.
Ah.
Yeah, so that's how I got it, yeah.
Where are the Rickards from, James?
Ireland,
Ah.
originally, yeah. My grandfather's from there, and partly from England, partly from France.
Do you know whereabouts in Ireland?
The Pellins,
Yep, no, you've lost me.
so Michael Pellin and the whānau.
The Palin whānau.
Yeah,
Oh, they're your relations?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah.
See, the Wilcoxes are Irish.
Yeah, I know. Probably same village.
Yeah, Wilcox, Cassidy's.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're probably related on the
Yeah,
Pākehā side.
yeah.
Although it's a hard case,
Yeah.
eh? Gee, that's a funny thought. I haven't had that before.
But I was, all my blood is mixed. Even on my dad's side, the Limas and the Manuels. I mean, they came from all over the place to find a new place to live.
Yeah.
So it was like we had a nomadic life, really.
Yeah.
And then the Maori land courts came along and just put us in one place. Kind of. That's what the old lady was fighting about.
Yeah. No, but a beautiful place to be raised.
Oh, yeah.
James.
Yep. No doubt. Yep.
Lots of history.
Yep.
Lots of culture.
Yep.
How foundational was that in terms of what you ended up doing with your life, do you think?
Well, all I remember is being a haututu. Like all kids, Yeah, you get a slap and, stuff like that.
Is that
And we
really?
used to milk cows. We used to work in the gardens during the summer. I mean, it wasn't like there was playtime, but we always had the moana. We could go and have a swim anytime. But in there lies the danger too. You hop in the wrong place and you get drowned. So you learn how to survive back in the day. And, you know, the pa brought up everyone's children, you know. It wasn't just your mum and dad, it was everyone. If you stepped out of line, they'll slap.
Were you really a haututu?
Oh, I'll tell you a story. The old lady told me. I was sent to school 5 years old, and my older brother and sister, she instructed them to take me to my class. They bailed off the bus, and I was left sitting in the bus, apparently. And the bus driver tried to get me off, and I wouldn't. So he got the headmistress. She came along, and I didn't know who she was. She said, "Get off the bus," and I went, swore at her. And he said, "Oh, do you know where you picked them up from?" "Yes." Took me back to the bus stop, and lucky the old lady was talking to her auntie just down the road. Saw the bus, walked down, and, "What are you doing here?" And so you know, and when I look at haututu kids, and I thought, I think back to that time, and I thought, oh yeah, I was one of those, you know.
And just so we're very clear, by the old lady you are referring to,
My mum.
yeah, who is
Yeah. Oh, Eva Rickard. Yeah.
yes, Taiapa Rickard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that, given all that your mother did for Te Ao Māori and her commitment to her community, what do you make of that now, so many years later?
You know, I became a carver because she made me be a carver.
Really?
Yep. I wanted to be a pilot. He got me to sign these papers, and next minute I'm heading to Rotorua.
Why did she do that?
That's a long story. So when I was growing up, right through till I was about 6, ka tai mai ngā kēhua, you know, and it was constant. So they sent me down to the East Coast to be with my other nan, and about 4 years into that, the kēhua from the Hauauru came down. And then one of my uncles said, "Oh, well, he needs to go home." So I think part of her decision was that the kēhua spent most of my early life. I've been chased around by kēhuas, so she sent me to the school so I could chase them around, if that makes sense.
There'll be a non-Māori audience watching this.
Oh, okay.
And they might not necessarily understand or have an appreciation of what we mean when we talk in the way that we talk about kēhua. So what do we mean by that?
Well, in Pākehā terms, I guess, ghost, apparitions, you name it. But all I could see was images, but I could hear their thoughts.
Wow.
Constantly. And so I used to get looked after by my aunties when I got sick. And I kind of thought about it for a while. And I thought after all this time, every time it happened, it was like they were trying to grab my wairua. And I got really sick. You know, for about a couple of days, I'd just sleep. Come right, be a haututu again. And then every couple of years it had happened.
But they weren't coming because you were being a haututu, right?
No.
So you weren't necessarily doing tutu things for things you shouldn't tutu.
Well, the old lady figured it out that one night it was that bad, she got the doctor up to slow my heartbeat down, gave me an injection. The moment I got the injection, the phone rang and her grand auntie had died. And she figured out that before they were dying, they were coming to tell someone that it was their time. And so I've been thinking about it all the time. And when I was down the coast, 3 of them turned up, and it was my granduncle, 2 of my uncles, one after the other, within about a month. Yeah, so you kind of put it together afterwards, you know, when you think about it, how things roll out. So that's why I ended up being a carver. If they're going to chase me in my childhood, I'll chase them in my adulthood. Yeah.
Because in a lot of our communities, people see that as a very special gift.
Well, I think everyone can see that other side. through different means, I guess. You know, I think human beings have an instinct, and they all have an instinct. Sometimes it just gets suppressed.
But not many have that appear in the way that it did to you, almost a physical manifestation.
Yeah, I remember looking through the wall of this one of our batch, and I was wide awake, and I could see this queer coming up the hill, saying, "Oh, I've come to pick you up." I was out of there. I tried to wake everyone in the batch up, and nobody could wake up. It was like they were in a deep sleep. So I spent about 3 times running around the house, trying to wake the old man up. Yeah, so it was.
And how old were you again?
I was about 14, I think, at that time. So I always thought that a tohunga had come out and gave us the blessing and it would be stopped. But he just came out and he had a talk with the old lady and he said, "Oh, kapai. They'll learn about the other side of life." And that's all he said. He had a cup of tea and went home. And I thought all this time that, I'm right.
You're right.
Yeah. And then I went to the carving school and it happened a few times, but the old lady said, "Oh, if it happens, just go and stand in a cold shower until it disappears."
Still happen?
Not now.
When did it stop?
About the 3rd year into the carving, when I learned the job I had to do. So, whakairo, you talk about this tapu thing, but it's about taking tupuna from over there and putting it into a living object over here, which is raku. You know what I mean? And that's the tapu nature of whakairo.
That's a point I want to pick up on,
Yeah.
because I want to ask you, when most of us see rako, what do you see? But let me just plant that seed and come back to it. Because there's another point I want to pick up on about being guided. People are guided. Someone called it the serendipity of longitude, where things happen and you're guided into situations and circumstances, and things just naturally happen. Do you believe that is what occurred with you, that you were guided there?
Well, I think that I think everyone has this creative ability. And once that creative ability starts interacting with the world around them, then things happen, if you know what I mean. So these new students that I'm teaching, I'm trying to teach them that. Look at their taiao and look at the world around them and then figure out what the images are that they can see in the whakairo, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It does to a certain degree. You have to remember that some of Te Ao Māori, present company included, don't possess the creative skill that you have. Never have, and probably never will. But I think I understand the sentiment.
Yeah.
But what I'm struck by is the active part that your tupuna played, and making sure, maybe that's not the right way to put this actually, but making sure you ended up in the right place, if you know what I mean.
I think for a while when I first went into the carving school, I thought, I'll do these 3 years and then I'll join the Air Force, which is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a pilot, of all things. But after 3 years, I had mates, and there was a whole new whānau in Rotorua, in the institute.
Okay.
And so I stayed.
I will come to the institute. Why wanting to be a pilot?
I was good in the military, so we had military cadets at school. And all I had to do was do a month's training and I'd enter the Air Force as a flight lieutenant. And they were going to send me to England for fighter pilot. I think at this time there was only one Maori jet fighter pilot, which was Baden Pere from down Rongowhakata. I think he was the only Maori jet fighter pilot. And they wanted a pin-up boy, I think, at the time.
So were you going to go, you're talking about the RAF?
Yeah, New Zealand Air Force was going to send me over there for training.
As a part of the RAF in
well,
UK? Holy heck.
Because I don't think they were capable over here at the time.
Yeah, I believe you're right. The only other one I can think of was Sunny, and they made a documentary about a fighter pilot World War II who was part of the Great Escape The documentary is called Turangarara, and I've just forgotten his name, but apparently he was a fighter pilot, and
So-
he got captured.
So one of those uncles that I was talking about,
Yeah.
he was in the RAF in the Second World War. Jim Kihi, he was in the Royal Air Force. Yeah.
And did you take that as a sign potentially that was a bit of a blessing to say the RAF, becoming a pilot might be the right call?
Well, I kind of liked the way the military operated. You know, there was a structure, there was discipline. At home, I was just a hotatu. You know, just always not much of a hotatu, but when I had nothing to do, I was a hotatu, really. So every time I see young ones playing up, I go, oh, yeah.
That's me.
Scroll back. Can't really say anything.
Well, the other thing I hear a lot of is that's a Maori trait. And look at what Maori did.
Exactly. You inherit that. So, you know, when I'm talking about everyone has this thing. Yeah.
So how do we identify that skill, the thing that you talk about? How do we identify that now?
I try and watch my mokopunas. I got a great granddaughter. I try and look at her and go, who's that? You know.
That's an interesting way you put it. Who's that?
Mm.
Not I wonder what that will be,
Yeah.
but who's that?
Yeah. I always look at people and look at their names, and I said, I wonder if they're going to turn out like their tupuna, you know. And it's interesting, you know, because of the reo and, you know, the revival of the reo and all the names that are being flown around, whether they're going to either end up like their tupuna or the names are too big for them to carry and it destroys them. You know, there's a whole opposite end of the spectrum when you start giving these big names and then it weighs the kid down. If you understand?
Yeah, no, I do. Do you worry about that?
Well, I worry about it when you do carving. When you do carving, the same effect. That's why people pay for their mistakes when they do stuff that they shouldn't. Carve a tupuna and the tupuna comes alive and then, whoa, you know.
Has that happened to you?
No, but it happens. If you scroll back, you see all of the stuff that goes haywire and wharenui, and you go, oh.
I wonder if also this has got something. We're talking about names now, and yes, I know you told me where the James name comes from, and that beautiful name of your papa. But there's also a little bit about the kupe name that comes to mind with me, knowing what kupe did: navigator,
Yep.
Wakamaker,
Yep.
builder, carver.
Yep.
Whether there's a little bit of that serendipity thing going on there too.
Well, I was talking to Hemi
Edwards.
Hemi Edward.
Edward, yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about kupe, and I looked at him and I said, And he said, what? And I said, kupe was a mean navigator, but he also did some really, you know, I mean, there were some sacrifices. Every time he did things, he had to sacrifice someone to get from point A to point B. And I said, you know, that's part of the other side of the coin that we don't really talk about.
Why don't we talk about it, James?
People get mataku, scared, you know. But I mean, yeah, life is like white and black. You have to talk about both sides of it. You can't just talk about the light, you know.
Are we able to have those conversations in a safe way, though, do you think?
Well, you can if you cut through all the rubbish. A lot of rubbish around, you know. I mean, if you go through the Pākehā education system, you end up with this kind of a thing attached to what you've learned. And you head off down this road and then you kind of realize, oh, I'm lost somewhere. You know? I mean, you see it all over the place. That's why I've never been to I went to high school because I had to, but after that, that was it. So I had to do this guy for his master's degree, and they rang up and said, oh, we need your qualifications. And I said, how's 40 meeting houses? And they said, oh, okay. And so they break their own rules, you know, when they have to.
I think they call that recognition of prior learning, don't they? Or real life experience.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, this is a fascinating conversation. I mean, I understand what you're talking about, because when you start learning a lot of these things about our traditional kōrero, te
Yes.
and karakia,
Yep.
and things like that, you have to be cognizant
Yes.
of the flip side.
Yes.
Is what
Exactly.
is what you're talking about.
Yep.
But do we still have the capability and capacity to be able to have those deep conversations on that other side?
I think in the creative space you can keep going backwards and forwards, and just showing them the dark side and go back, dark side, go back. This is what can happen, and you just keep going like that, backwards and forwards. And you're trying to teach people stuff. It's not always lights and bells. You have to always show them the bad side of things.
Were you? Yeah, I know we talked about, as I say, the manifestations that became apparent to you when you were younger. But when you went to the carving school for the first time, were you aware that that's what you were going to have to learn, or did it just come?
No.
Up?
All that stuff was because of what happened when I was young.
Yeah.
That all came later,
Okay.
as I started to carve. And nobody taught me that; it just arrived.
Yeah. So let's talk about then that first intake, 1967.
Yeah.
Yep. The first intake. How many of you are there?
Seven. So they tried to pick from each iwi at the time that they thought that needed help.
Do you remember the first day?
Yep.
What happened?
So we hopped on a bus. They gave us instructions. We all stayed at the Whanaunatanga hostel. We hopped off this bus and we walked down the road, and we kept walking, and we started walking into the scrub, and we said, "That's funny." So we walked back. The institute looked like a motel, and we actually walked past it. So we walked in, we said, "Oh, there it is." And of course, they were waiting for us, and they said, "Oh, where are these young fellas?" We had gone past down the Hemel Gorge. Yeah, so it was funny. And I think when we walked in, John said, "Whatever I teach you, you teach others," which is, I think it was the only intake he did it to, was to make sure that you teach others, I guess.
And was there a shake of hands, or just
No,
was
just
understood and known that that's what you were going to have to do?
Yeah.
What was going on at New Zealand Māori Arts and Crafts Institute in 1967? Why did that first intake come about?
Well, I think they came to the sudden realization that all the people that went through the first school in 1926 and subsequent, students all began to die, and there were no replacements. And they suddenly realized if they didn't restart the teaching of whakairo, it would die. And that's why it started, really. Again, it was part of Apirana Ngata's sort of kaupapa, really. They just tweaked a few things and added a few things that we would make souvenirs and, make money. And so the government started it again. Yeah.
Sorry, I should have asked you this before I got into it, but could you actually carve?
No. I couldn't even draw.
Really?
In fact, if I never had an iPad, I'd still would struggle to draw.
No.
Yeah. But I know how to shape. I know what things feel like. I know what taihas and pati should feel like, and I don't need to draw things.
Well, how did you know that? Like, how do you know that? If you
you make hundreds over the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so you kind of get the feel of things, and people have different feels. So when you're making a weapon for a big guy, you make it big because that's what he likes. That's instinct. That's his kaha, really. You always make big things for big guys.
This is fascinating, I have to say. But you actually hadn't carved anything before you went in?
No. None of us.
Did you know? Did you think you could?
No.
What?
Just straight out of the blocks. Here's a block of wood. We go. Yeah, but it's actually it's become part of this arty realm, but it's actually not. It's quite actually hard job to do. Hard on the body, hard on the tinana when you're doing a meeting house. It's not that easy. You know, I don't know why people want to do it, but they do. And you've got to get into the right frame of mind, and you've got to understand what you're there to do. So, you know, as a carver, you learn that your first responsibility is to the marae that hires you, to the people that belong to that marae, to their marae committee, and to make sure that their hopes and dreams come to life. That's your job.
And I do want to get into that because it's the transference and the transportation of thought and the esoteric into the concrete from the abstract. I want to talk about that process and how you do that. But before I get there, there's a block of wood you've never carved before, and you get asked to do what with it?
Well, we had to do tekos because we never had any chisels. So at the time when the school started, there was a big 6 months union strike in England. So all our chisels were on a ship in England heading for New Zealand, but
couldn't get off the wharf.
Not yet.
Okay.
So we were using John's chisels. And of course, you know, we didn't know how to use chisels. And we were bashing them around, and he was, you know, about 3 months in, he said, right, no chisels. You know, so we just sat around and we just talked, you know, did a bit of tuku, did a bit of this, did a bit of that, but pretty much waiting for our chisels to turn up.
Right.
So, you know, it wasn't like it was a fairy tale start to the institute. It was like, waiting for something to happen.
And this is true for all 7 of you?
Yes. Yeah.
Had anyone carved?
No.
Holy heck.
Yeah.
The reason, and I don't mean to appear to be so blown away by this, but you think of some of the others in the intake. You know, we've got a revered person in the north that was part of that intake, as you know.
Yeah.
And you talked about those manifestations earlier, and it seems that you were just born for that and ready to go on day one, but that's not the case at all.
No.
Wow.
Oh, I wanted to, you know, was 16 years old. What did you do at 16?
I'd rather not say publicly.
But, you know, hey, you're 16 years old and you're with other 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, and you're all hotutus, you know, and you're out in the world, away from milking cows, away from your parents. So, you know, it's not like you want to be a carver.
Yeah.
Carving is the means to feed you and house you. But it wasn't like it was your dream. It was like, I better not fail. You know, I think the old man said, yeah, you better finish this. Don't come home till you finish it. And that was the same for all of us. Like there was a weight of responsibility from the iwi.
And you were aware of that expectation?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. All of us.
Okay.
We were all told, you're here for your iwi, not for you.
And of course, by John, we're talking about
John Taiapa.
John Taiapa. Yeah. Did he ever show any kind of I'm trying to think of the word, exasperation?
Oh yeah. No. He'd get frustrated, really frustrated about things. And if he got really frustrated, he'd just smash a piece. If it was rubbish, he'd just smash it, and just said, "Get another one," and just walk back into the office
and start again.
So what you did was, when one piece smashes, you all go, better not go there. And everybody sort of just...
And that happened to everybody. It wasn't...
Well, it usually happened to one person. It only took one person.
Yeah,
and
so
you all learned. Well, I better not make that mistake.
How long in before you realised you could do this? And there was a bit of a... You had a bit of a gift for it.
It was a few years in. So we were doing mātātu in Rotorua.
Oh, yes.
And we were all carving away there, and we're just carving off photographs, and we couldn't get it because we'd done East Coast stuff all the time, so it gets nice and rounded and stuff like that. Mātātu isn't like that. Mātātu is totally different. And I didn't realise that we were carving away there, and one of the boys came over and said, "Oh, are you in a race with those guys over there?" And I said, "Who?" He said, "All of those ones over there are racing you." And I said, "Why are they racing me?" They said, "Oh, you're the fastest in the school." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Are they racing me?" And so it was all on here. So I did a popo in 3.5 days
Wow.
from start to finish, yeah. And so they said, oh, he can't do it again. So bang, bang.
Did another one.
Yeah.
And another one.
Yeah. It just kept going. Yeah. And it was like, once you got the idea about mātātua whakairo, you could do it really quickly.
But is that implanted? That's
That's in your
implanted
head. Yeah. You have an image in your head. You know exactly the levels that you need to get to and how to find the shortcuts to get there.
How does it come in here though? Like what? That's the bit I'm trying to understand. And
Because you learn all the technical details when you're training, how to design, how to do this, and you learn how to do everything properly. So you have all these technical skills. You just don't know how to apply them to anything until somebody shows you a photograph and says, like this. And you go, oh, that's what we do. And you suddenly realize that you can do a whole lot of stuff, you know. But it's about getting your technical capability up and running, so that you have the ability to use it in the way it's intended to be used, I guess.
And sorry, how many years in from day one is this before that's when you've got that clarity of thought and assuredness of mind?
Year 4, year 5.
Wow.
Takes a while. It takes a while because you're encompassed in a tourist organisation.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of tourism going on. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on, not necessarily wharenui. And then all of a sudden, Hone Waititi was being carved. Then all of a sudden, we had all of these meeting houses that we were doing, all in, for a period of about 10 years. Everyone decided, oh, let's get our houses done. So you learnt a lot of stuff in that 10-year period, I guess, and all the students who went through in that 10-year period from 1970 to 1980, they learnt a lot.
Wow. I'm sorry, I thought it was a 3-year course.
It is a 3-year course.
It is a 3-year course.
But part of the problem with the 3-year course is that when the tribe sent us there, they had no job at home for us to go back to. It was like, oh, you go there. And so we stayed at the institute. They kept us on at the institute because they didn't want to waste what we already knew.
Now, see, that's commendable.
Yeah.
Thank goodness they did that.
So at one point there, we had about 26 graduates.
Altogether?
Altogether.
All carving at the same time?
Wow. And so you could spread it out. It's like that matatini maho. So you had the first, second and third intakes plus the graduates and 3 months to do it. And you just farm it out to each group that's capable of doing certain things. And you just farm it out and say, do this. And you get it done.
What's it like when something like Mātātua opens and you see it?
Actually, we weren't there because I think there was John died. Yeah. John died before the opening, I think. Yeah. I woke up one morning and it was on the radio. I'd seen him the night before. I'd gone in to see him and had a talk with him. And I said, oh, why are you in here so long? He said, I just got something on my chest. And I said, really? He didn't look anything different from what he is when I first saw him. But yeah, the next morning I woke up.
Umate. They do talk about ko te utu o te whare.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. Well, that's it. He talked about it too. Yeah, he talked about it.
Okay, so maybe not Mātātua, but you go into a marae and you see what you've done. I mean, what's that like? It must be an amazing feeling.
The last one I did was Waititi. So Waititi, they didn't want to dismantle the house, and so we painted all the popo. All the popo are painted. One of the hardest things to do is when you do a whare, is all the people of the marae, they're all there and they go, okay, whose whakapapa is going into this house? And there's a clash. I mean, you can feel it. And there's a clash amongst themselves. And so you're stuck there and you have to try and talk them through the process of, how it's done and blah, blah, blah. And then one of the kōreros they gave me was this guy got burnt in his house. And everyone managed to escape except him. So I said to them, okay, all the tukutuku panels are to be black and white. Wow. All the weavers jumped up and down. Oh. So we had a quick hui. They rang me up, so I had to go for this quick hui at Waititi. And we're sitting there and they say, they're talking about the colours they were going to use. And I said, I thought you said that this guy got burnt in the house. And they said, oh, yeah. And I said, so the colour should be black. And they kind of all looked at one another. And so what you have to do is try and talk them into seeing sense, in a way. Because you can see it in your mind, and what you want them to do is see it, but they don't, because all their whakapapa gets in the road and all their politics gets in the road, and you're trying to talk them through the process of trying to make it easy for their mokopunas to understand the house and how it's laid out and all the tupunas that are in there, and you're trying to do all of these things for them while they're arguing amongst themselves. And so part of the job is once you get the okay, you go for it and you don't stop. And sooner or later they start walking in and having a look at the whare and you go, oh, we like this whare now. They're really proud of their house. And I'm really proud of them, for sticking to their guns, especially the trustees. Every man and his dog is throwing stones at them, and you have to try and coach them through that process of fending off. And every house is the same. Every hapu is the same. They'll always argue about whakapapa. I always found out that if you do a whare is to look at the whenua first, don't include tupuna. Tell me about your mountains, your rivers, all of this. And they start looking and they said, oh, where's our tupuna? And I said, oh, when you have all that in place, then the tupunas arrive. And so it gives them a structure to think things through, a process.
So talking about the tupuna then.
Yeah.
What was the whakairo that showed you or created the pathway that led to the point at which those tupuna who were coming to visit you, if I can put it in that way, suddenly stopped? And was that, do you think, the blessing part which said, you're on the right path now, hoatu, haere, tupuna?
Well, I think it was the fact that I could get out of bed, even though I was sick, walk along a corridor and stand under a shower, and they kind of knew that, oh, well, waste of time was hanging around this fella because he knows what to do now. Yeah. And because it transformed itself into, I used to have weird dreams, and I used to kind of really wake up shaking with these weird dreams, and it was just a matter of trying to figure out what the dream was. And just I had this dream, and I saw everyone up home at Urupa, and I arrived late, so I stood down the bottom, and they were walking down, and I started counting everyone, the old man, the old lady, my aunties, and it wasn't until I was in the pub after the tangi, my auntie had died, and it wasn't until after the tangi and I was in the pub with my uncles, I remembered I didn't see her come down the hill. And I said, no. They looked at me and said, oh, what? And I said, oh, I never saw Auntie Ruby come down the hill in my dream. And they looked at me and said, take your beer and go. So it's kind of like...
But I now understand why you can do what you do so well.
Yeah.
I now get it, because for most of us, we look at a rākau and we see a rākau. Or we might see the rākau and thought, oh, yeah, that rākau was the rākau that my tupuna may have sat under, it was there when my tupuna was there, kind of thing. When it comes to transforming something that is a replication, reflection of a tupuna, you can automatically see that or see what the...
Well, actually, I didn't really understand it, and then I saw this program. It was Hunting the White Wolf, I think it was called, and this guy sent up this drone, heat-seeking drone, in the middle of winter to try and catch this wolf. And when he went up, all the trees were red. They were alive, like literally like blood flowing up these pine trees. And I looked at it and I said, that's what I'm doing. I'm taking a tupuna from way back over there and I'm putting it into this living thing over here. And I said, far out.
Right.
And all you have to do is watch this program and you see the trees come alive.
And can you, even before the process, because there is a long process to go through, to the process you go through to take that rako, and that kind of thing. But can you see already what that rako is going to look like at that point that you've selected that?
So you can, if they give you a tupuna and you go, because a lot of those people have carry names that describe them, and you look at them like kahumata momoi, and all of those guys, they look like tamate kapua, kahumata momoi, and who's the other ones? What's the tupuna? That other tupuna. They all look like bird beaks, like big noses. And so you have a look at Pukaki. Got this huge nose and a big head. And it's a reflection of his tupuna. It's a reflection of where he's come from. It's his DNA. So when you're looking at whakaira, a piece of wood, it's not a piece of wood, it's the DNA that he's left behind, or somebody's put into a rako for you to see and find out information about him. Yeah. And so when I look at carvings, I look at them and go, And you try and find their living descendants, because you'll see a copy of them around, of all these guys who descend from the Yeah. So it's interesting how life is reflected in your po that you have, you know.
Is it art? Sorry, is it life imitating art or art imitating life?
I have no idea what that means. That's I have no. I think that we somewhere along the line we've lost our ability to really think about our history, think about our whakapapa, and how think about our nomadic way that we used to live, and how we used to connect every year by following the food chains and the rivers and connect up with your whānau. Now, we all live in these little quarter acre sections, and, we kind of get lost in this big white world. Yet the marae and the whare is there to put it all together. And, what you're trying to do is trying to make it as easy as possible for young ones to read. That's this, and you try and set out the whare like a book, pages of a book, from the new part to the old part, and you just walk.
Okay, so let me take an example then, living one for me. Hopefully the audience will excuse this of me for doing this, but let's take that uewhatipo that you carved for us at Te Māhurehure. In all its intricacy and ornateness, you can see that, and because you can't draw it.
Yeah.
You can see that as you've got the rako already in that detail, or is that a matter of the process coming to being and into fruition, and then you
kind of evolves as you go along. You know what should be there. You don't know how the configuration happens, but you know it should be there. And you have tried to put everything into one po, a lot of history into one po. So I think I had a meeting with Rereata, and it was interesting, The thing about doing carvings like that is you get to learn someone else's history, and you get to understand who they are, where they're from, and that knowledge that they have, So it was interesting. For me, the pay was meeting him and getting that history. That was interesting. And I've known Christine and them for a long time, so it was good helping them out. We went there when the whare was first being built. In actual fact, I got off and I started taking photographs of the builders. And then I said, send your old pose down. I mean, she had these old pose that her dad had done. And I said, I will send them down. we'll do them. I mean,
So if I can come back to the point, the part that freaks me out is, yes, you've got your plan. You can see,
Yeah.
you know, the rough shape and guide, but you're still figuring it out as you're going.
yeah.
See, most of us, most people can't do that, right?
Oh, I think people can imagine. I mean, if I look at the cameraman here, hey, they look at a light and shadow. I mean, that's looking at kehuas and stuff like that. It's no different. It's just a different different lens that you look through. So we all look at things differently, but we all look at it the same. I mean, carving is about contrast between the night and the day, It's about how you throw shadows. And that's what that po is about, is how you throw shadows on one piece of wood.
Can you feel the weight of the responsibility of a certain piece? Let's say a whare. Do you feel the weight of the responsibility of all those people connected? And not just that, but all those future generations.
Oh, yeah. That's your job. That's your job.
But how do
but you don't, it's not a weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a privilege.
How do you carry that?
You have a tangi every now and again when you think about stuff. But tangi is good. Sometimes helps heal your wairua, I guess.
It's it's just come to me, the fact that all those years, James, all those years at Arts and Crafts Institute, how many pieces? How many have you done?
Oh,
do you even know?
No. But what I enjoy the most is that the people who have come through there and the people I've helped teach are all out there in Te Ao Māori doing their thing, which is a good thing for the future. That's what I like about it. That's why I still do it. I'm up here teaching 2 students from Ngāti Whātua and 1 from Ngāti Kuri. But it's that ongoing thing that you need to push the talent out to where it belongs, out into those communities, up north, in Ngāti Kuri, into the Kaipara, all of those houses that need doing. I mean,
What's the one thing that every student must have for you to be able for you to want to teach them?
They need to have a passion, eh? They need to have passion about, doing this thing. And I keep telling them, I said, don't think this is easy. This is a hard job. So I have this 1 chisel challenge. They're only allowed to use 1 chisel and they've got to produce a wheku with 1 chisel. Takes them about 2 months. Wow. But it's not about the fact that they do a wheku. It's the fact that they have to persevere and they have to have patience. They can't, if they throw the chisels around, that they're not going to last. But it just shows you if they've got patience or not. That's all. That's why I do it. Just to,
And no matter where they're from.
No matter where they're from.
Or what their previous experience might be.
Yeah. They just got to park that all on the side. I prefer that people don't have the experience, like me. Start again. start from scratch.
Start from scratch. Easier to teach.
Easier to teach if they don't have any preconceived ideas about whakairo. Yep.
I've got lots in my mind, and I'm trying, and I'm worried that we're keeping you for a long time. But there's so much more to ask. There's so much more to ask you. When did you know you could teach? Did someone ever say?
No. You just when the new students come in and they need help, you just walk over and say like this. And just show them, and then you suddenly realise that you're a teacher. But there's no booklet to it. It's like this is how you do things. Yeah.
There was never kind of any official.
There's no booklet on it. So, whakairo is about sound and rhythm.
Yeah.
And so you have to, your eyes, your ears and your hands have to be in, what do they call it when it's all together? Synchronized. Everything has to be synchronized. So when you go on holiday, everything desynchronizes. So when the students used to come back, and it used to take them about 2 weeks for them to get into the hang of things because of that synchronicity that needs to happen. And it's all in your mind and your ears. You can tell people what people are doing just by listening to the sound of their pātukituki.
Oh, I see. I was going to say, forgive my ignorance, but what's the ears got to do with it? But you can hear it.
You can hear it, exactly what they're doing. You can tell if they're struggling or not. So the faster the tap, they're going around in a little tight circle. The slower the tap, the bigger circles. And you can tell, in actual fact, if you do close-up photographs of carvings, you can tell what one of these old growers, what his mood was, just by the marks he leaves behind.
Really?
Yeah.
So even...
I only figured it out by the way I feel. When I'm looking at it, I go, And so you look at it and you go, oh, okay.
So say, for instance, te hau ki turanga, e te papa.
Yeah.
Rahuri Rukupo.
So I said to Carl and said, if you get me close-up photographs, I can tell you what mood Rukupo was in.
And you could?
Yeah. Just by looking at the marks.
Care to share?
So, when you have these marks, they like this. They're all close together. It means your mind is synchronized, everything is focused. But when they're wider and wider apart and they jump like that, it means something's going on.
Wow.
There's something going on in the background, not necessarily with the whakairo, but exterior from the house.
And that carver's life.
Well, it could be war, it could be anything that he's thinking about while he's doing this whare. So you kind of have to match what was going on externally with what he's thinking.
How easy is it, James, to stop the thinking and the noise and just try and be hāngai? Or is that just not possible?
Oh, you can once you get into that.
Into the
zone,
rhythm
the zone. Once you get into the zone, that's right. As long as there's nothing outside the door happening. I mean, when you get, that's why they used to carve away from everyone else, so they could focus entirely on the house. But if there's trouble out the door, and one of the carvers is involved in their trouble, he'll bring it into the house, and it'll start to affect everyone else. It's like the wairua travels around and gives everybody a bash. Yeah.
Is there anything you won't do? Is there anything you haven't done?
I haven't taught a woman, mainly because I've seen what it does when women have picked up chisels and the stuff that's happened afterwards. And you go, phew, I don't want to be responsible for any of that, And so I've said to them, I said, oh, well, whoever wants to do that, but I won't. Yeah.
Am I allowed to ask what happens?
Broken marriages, suicides, all sorts of stuff. And yet there were women that did moko. In actual fact, some of these women, they had to run and hide, especially in Aotearoa, when Aotearoa decided to be part of the crown. Some of these tattooists, because of that Tohunga Suppression Act, they had to leave, go somewhere out with their craft. So there were women tattooists. So, yeah. But I was just thinking about, the woman and about how you take this tupuna and this wairua over here and then you put it into this tree. And I'm going, ooh, hey. And I'm thinking, oh, maybe that's part of that problem, Maybe the tupuna doesn't want a woman handling him. I don't know. It's one of those things.
Mm.
But yeah, I won't find out.
What do you think that, if she were alive, what do you think your mum would say about all these years' commitment to, people would say preserving identity. Well, I'm not sure if that's the right phrase. I'm trying to think.
Oh, yep, that's part of it. It's just preserving the identity of Māoridom and their creative arts, the creative space that they have. I mean, in terms of whai kōrero, in terms of all of those things, waiata, it's all part of that creative space.
Yeah.
How you speak on the marae, how you do this, how you do that. And we've kind of lost touch with that. How you manaki people, That's all part of the creative space. That's what they were fighting for. I think originally they were fighting and protesting to, not their whakamahai patu. They were trying to make the government embarrassed because they weren't, dealing with their native population. And I think that was one of the main drivers, was just let's embarrass these fellas, drag them to the table, And I think that was part of that struggle. So, in terms of the old lady, I think I'm just part of that. That job is still not finished.
No.
I remember having a cup of tea with her one night and I was looking at her and she was kind of like, I said, what's wrong with you? And she said, I feel anxious. And I said, for who? And I said, not for you fellas. You were brought up in a Pākehā world. You know how to survive in it. And I said, but for my mokopunas and their children. She was thinking that far ahead down the track. And I think, I'm part of that journey for her, really, is to try and help other iwi reconnect with their creative spaces, fix up their whares. I mean, we have a legacy all around this country and they're all falling down. We need to fix them up. Yeah.
Is that why you decided after all these years to retire from Ngā Tupuia?
Well, then because you're locked into one place. You need to go out there and you need to take it out to where it belongs, out onto the maraes, out into the iwi where it belongs, and try and reinstigate a local learning process rather than a generic process that we seem to be stuck in. Every part of New Zealand is different. The kōrero is different. Your āhua and your shape of your whakairo should be different. It should be different, but it's not.
Because I read a report when you announced that you were leaving, and it said that you were hanging up the toki, and I thought to myself, that's never happening.
No. I was leaving because there was no real big projects there left to do. And it was the last project that was there. And I said, well, now's the time to finish, there and go home. Well, I was going home and then I got sidetracked up to Tāmaki, because Ngāti Pātua, I mean, it needs help. So that's why I'm here, really. Get them started, get them going.
Could you ever imagine a time where you won't be carving?
Not really. But part of whakairo is whakapapa and how, and the pūrākau and all of this stuff. That's part of whakairo.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of stuff that you need to delve into, mō tea, orioris, and all of these things that you can take information from. And it's
Yeah.
all of that, part of that learning for our new students. They need to learn how to do that. At the moment, they just learn technical capability. But they need to learn all of this other stuff. Connect back to their whenua, to their people. So that's part of that journey.
And that'll be ongoing.
Oh, that'll
that
be
might
ongoing.
not ever end.
Yeah, I think it'll be ongoing for a long time. Yeah, I mean they need to, because at the moment we're stuck in cities, going nowhere, fast. Yeah.
You said you were meant to be going home because that's what I read. Was you
Oh well,
going
I'll
home?
still go home. So they're the only people who've never asked me to carve a house.
Is that right?
Yep, never. And I'm sitting here going, I'll wait till they ring up. In the meantime, I'll keep doing other places. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I'm just trying to think of how I try and condense 4 different thoughts into one in the hope that I can get it all out there. But here's the next part I'll ask them. Are you glad you didn't become a pilot now?
Actually, it was funny. We after COVID, and we got back to work, and we were all sort of hanging around with all the young students. And I said, "Oh, I was going to become a pilot," and they all looked at me and said, "Really?" And I said, "Yep, never wanted to become a carver." And I said, "But now that I think about it, I would have been an out of work Air New Zealand pilot." But no, look at me, I'm still carving. But it's taken me years to find that out. Hey, it's one of those. Yeah.
You might have actually been an officer in the RAF, and therefore commanding people rather than actually being in the plane. But nevertheless, but a part of me also wants to go back to, I'll put it this way, the tupuna infused direction, which leads you down this pathway. Do you still feel the touch of that on and off sometimes? Helping guide?
But so here's the thing. So you're dealing with whakapapa all the time, eh?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter which tupuna. You know what I mean? Whatever tupuna you're with is the one you're with. It doesn't have to be yours, someone else's. But all you're trying to do is get them here, back.
No.
That makes sense.
Yep.
I don't think it's, and when you're talking about those growers that used to come, it's got nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
It's about the people I'm looking after now. And they know that. They're not in that age group. They've got photographs of them. So, yeah.
Kare James, tēnā koe.
Oh,
Tēnā koe ia tawa kōrero. You mentioned the word privilege before. I mean, the thing about these kōrero is there's an immense privilege in being able to talk with people like yourself and hear the life experience and the different experiences that people have. But I wanted to say that it's a privilege not just to be able to talk to you, but also to behold the work that you've done and see it, and yes, touch it, but feel it, and what it means, and what it reflects, and what it represents. And I hope that continues to be the case for a long time to come. Thank you for talking to us.
No sweat. Anytime.
Ngā mihi nui kia koe. Kia ora mai.
Kia koe hoki.